This video is brought to you by Nebula. Today, Egypt devalues its currency amid an ongoing financial crisis. China drops its reference to peaceful reunification with Taiwan, and we go over yesterday's Super Tuesday election results from the United States. From TLDR News, this is your daily briefing for Wednesday the 6th of March 2024. Amid an ongoing currency crisis, Egypt has devalued its currency for the fourth time since the beginning of 2022, after the central bank raised interest rates by a major 6 percentage points, up to 27.25%. In case you didn't already know and haven't watched our videos on Egypt's economic and financial woes, Egypt has for years been struggling with a serious shortage of foreign currency, and things have only gotten worse in the past few months as international commercial shipping avoids the Red Sea, and therefore the Suez Canal, due to attacks by the Yemen-based Houthis, ultimately depriving Egypt of a vital source of income. As well as hiking interest rates, the central bank said it would let the Egyptian pound trade freely, allowing the exchange rate to be determined by market forces. Following this decision, the pound's value against the dollar dropped sharply on Wednesday morning, falling past £45 to the dollar from a level a little below £31. Floating the currency is, among other reforms like privatising public assets, a key demand of the International Monetary Fund, from whom Egyptian authorities have been trying to secure a multi-billion-dollar loan. Egypt had apparently been reluctant to let the market set the pound's exchange rate, due to worries that the country's central bank didn't have enough foreign currency reserves to prevent the pound falling sharply against the dollar. But the central bank's decision to let the pound trade freely comes after Egypt secured a major $35 billion investment from the United Arab Emirates into a large development project on the Mediterranean coast. The UAE has since transferred the first $10 billion of that investment to Egypt already. As we said, we've made a number of videos about Egypt's ongoing crisis over on the TLDR Global channel, which you should check out if you're interested. There's more on the way, but be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to make the daily briefing part of your daily routine, or just search for us on your podcast app to listen along. In its latest budget report, China has dropped the reference to a peaceful reunification with Taiwan, in a subtle shift that suggests it's hardening its position towards the island. The report, delivered by Premier Li Qiang at the opening of the National People's Congress, said China would boost its defence spending by 7.2% this year, a similar increase to the 7.1% boost to defence spending last year. Premier Li said, "We will provide stronger financial guarantees for efforts to modernise our national defence and the armed forces on all fronts." But it's a minor change to some wording that has drawn a fair amount of attention, with the government report calling for reunification with Taiwan, this time omitting the word peaceful, which has been used previously. The report adds that, in relation to reunification, China wants to be firm, though it's worth noting that this is not the first time a Chinese government report has dropped the word peaceful. China is not the only country in the region ramping up its defence spending, though. Japan has boosted its defence budget to record levels, citing challenges posed by China and North Korea. Meanwhile, other US allies in the Asia-Pacific, like South Korea, Taiwan and the Philippines, are also increasing their defence spending. Yesterday was Super Tuesday in the United States, as voters from 16 states and 1 territory had their say in the Democratic and Republican primaries. Now, with so many elections held on one day, we're going to run through just a few of the stories from the day. The headline is that, as expected, both President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump continued to dominate their respective primaries, winning almost all contests, the latest sign that the country is, assuming no major changes, heading for a Trump-Biden rematch. This was made all the more likely as, at the time of writing, the Wall Street Journal reports that Republican challenger Nikki Haley will suspend her campaign today, but won't immediately endorse Donald Trump. Anyway, this came after Haley actually won a surprise victory in Vermont, which was only her second victory against Trump this election season, having also won Washington, D.C. the other day. Joe Biden, meanwhile, also narrowly missed out on winning a clean sweep, losing the Pacific Island territory of American Samoa to Jason Palmer, a previously unknown candidate from Maryland who focused on the territory and campaigned remotely, ultimately beating Biden by 51 votes to 40.
You're probably wondering, Who is this Jason Palmer? I've never heard of him before. Well, in the mainland, I'm actually very well known.
American Samoa is no stranger to rogue results. Back in 2020, it delivered the only victory for billionaire candidate Mike Bloomberg. Biden also faced another not insignificant protest vote in Minnesota, where around 19% of voters opted to choose uncommitted on the ballot. The movement aiming to pressure Biden into calling an immediate ceasefire in Gaza has been urging voters to select uncommitted instead of voting for Biden. Yesterday, the International Criminal Court, or the ICC, issued arrest warrants for two high-ranking Russian military officers on charges linked to attacks on civilian infrastructure in Ukraine during Russia's bombing campaigns in 2022 and 2023. The two officers in question are Lieutenant General Sergei Ivanovich Kobylash, then commander of the long-range aviation of the Aerospace Force, and Russian Navy Admiral Viktor Kinilaevich Sokolov, who was the commander of the Black Sea Fleet. This is quite a big deal, as it's only the second time a global court has publicly announced any kind of warrant linked to Russia's war in Ukraine. In March 2023, the ICC publicly announced arrest warrants for Russian President Vladimir Putin and his Commissioner for Children's Rights Maria Alexeyevna Lvova-Belova, accusing them of being responsible for the abduction of children from Ukraine. Putin, as a result, has been avoiding any countries who have signed the ICC's Rome Statute, as in theory these states are obliged to arrest him if he sets foot on their soil. In response to these two new arrests, Ukrainian prosecutor Andrei Kostin and President Volodymyr Zelensky welcomed the arrests. Zelensky took to X, formerly Twitter, warning Russian commanders that if they order strikes against Ukrainian civilians and critical infrastructure, justice will be served. Every perpetrator of such crimes must know that they will be held accountable. And finally, yesterday the EU Council and Parliament reached a provisional agreement to ban the entry of products made with forced labour into the European single market. The deal would allow Brussels to investigate, seize and destroy these products. According to the International Labour Organization, there were 27.6 million people in forced labour in 2021, with 17.3 million in the private sector and 3.9 million exploited by governments. While Brussels has their eye particularly on China, which could spark new trade tensions, it's still seen as a step forwards in achieving fair trade and a win for human rights. The agreement is still provisional and needs to be formally approved by the European Parliament and the Council to be enforced, so it'll be a race against time to finalise the deal before EU elections in June. If you want to keep learning and expanding your knowledge, then I'd recommend you check out Wendover Productions' brilliant series, The Logistics of X. You likely know Wendover already, but in this series they dive deeper into the logistics and operations behind everything from search and rescue operations to ski resorts and coal mining. One episode I think you'd particularly enjoy is their latest, which gets into the logistics of weapons manufacturing. Something that's key to a number of topics we discuss regularly in TLDR videos, and something that directly impacts wars and conflicts all around the world. It's a brilliantly researched and thorough series, and it's exclusively available on our streaming service Nebula. As you likely know, Nebula is the service we built with a bunch of our creator friends, and is the home to tons of smart educational content from all of your favourite creators. The best part is that by signing up, you not only get access to exclusive series like The Logistics of X, Modern Conflicts from Real Life Law, or China Actually from Polymatter, it also directly supports TLDR. That's because when you sign up, you contribute to the budgets of these big budget documentaries and help us grow and expand our ambitions. If you want to get more superb context and support TLDR, then if you sign up using the link below, you can support us directly and get Nebula for 40% off their annual plan. That's less than £2 a month. Thanks for your support and for backing Nebula.